The night was dark and heavy with rain. Cold wind swept through the narrow alleys of the alien city. The streets were empty, except for one lonely figure. She was an outcast, a woman with no home, no family, and no protection. Her skin glistened under the rain, her steps weak, her body shivering. She searched for a place, any place, where she could rest without fear. Her society had cast her out. They had taken everything from her and left her to die. She had begged for mercy before, but all she received were cruel laughs. Now she was nothing more than a shadow moving in the storm. Every corner seemed to hide danger. Every sound reminded her of those who hunted the weak. In the distance, she saw a small house. It was strange to see light in such darkness. The glow of fire flickered through the window. Her heart raced, hope and fear fighting inside her. She walked closer, each step heavy with doubt. Would the one inside reject her as well? Or worse, demand a price she could never pay? Her trembling hand knocked on the wooden door. The sound echoed against the storm. For a moment there was silence. Then the door opened slowly. A human stood there, tall, tired-looking, yet calm. His eyes met hers, and in them she saw no cruelty, only surprise. She fell to her knees before him. Her voice broke as she spoke. "Please, let me stay here tonight. I have nothing I can give myself, if that is the price." The words hung heavy in the air. The offer was desperate. The last piece of her pride falling to the ground. She expected disgust or greedy acceptance, but what she saw was confusion in the man's face. The human bent down, his voice steady but gentle. "I do not want that. I will not take you like this." He held the door open wider. "Come inside, you are cold and wet. No one should be left outside in this storm." She stared at him, her mind refusing to believe. Every part of her screamed that there must be a trick, yet the warmth spilling from the fire behind him was real. With slow steps she entered. The air inside was warmer. The scent of burning wood filled the room. The man took a blanket from the chair and placed it on her shoulders. He did not touch her in hunger. He did not look at her with desire. Instead, he turned back to the fire, adding another log. "Sit," he said simply. "You will be safe here tonight." Her eyes widened. Safe. The word echoed in her mind like something forbidden. She had forgotten what safety felt like. Even now she could not trust it. Her people had taught her that every gift had a hidden cost. Every kindness was only a mask for chains. The man gave her food, simple bread and warm broth. She held the bowl with shaking hands. The heat of it seeped into her palms, reminding her she was still alive. She kept watching him, waiting for the demand that would surely follow. But he said nothing, only sat down across from her, silent and calm. His eyes carried sadness, not greed. It made her wonder, who was this human, and why did he choose kindness? The storm outside raged louder. Rain hit the roof like endless fists. But inside the small house there was only firelight and silence. Her heart beat fast, every moment stretching long. She felt both safe and trapped. Was this a dream or a new kind of danger? The suspense pressed against her chest like a stone. Finally she whispered, why help me, when I have nothing to give?" The man looked at her for a long moment, then answered with simple words, "No one should suffer when I can stop it." The answer made no sense to her. Her world had never worked that way. She lowered her eyes, holding the blanket tight. For the first time in years, tears burned her eyes, not from pain, but from the strange weight of hope. She wanted to believe him, but fear chained her thoughts. She remembered the cruel faces of her people, the ones who had taken her body, her pride, and then cast her aside. Could this man truly be different? The fire cracked, filling the silence. Outside the storm screamed. But inside the house, a fragile peace grew. She did not sleep. She could not. Her mind was full of questions, but deep inside, a spark of something long forgotten began to wake. It was the start of a bond she could not yet understand, and a choice that would change both of their lives forever. The storm outside did not stop. It screamed against the wooden walls and rattled the windows. But inside the small house, the fire gave warmth. The alien woman sat close to it, her thin hands wrapped around the bowl of broth. Her body still shook, not only from the cold but from fear. She kept stealing glances at the human, waiting, always waiting. He moved slowly, quietly, as if not to scare her. He placed more wood into the fire and checked the door. Then he returned to his chair, sitting without a single demand. She could not understand him. Every act of kindness in her life had always carried a price. Why did this man show care and ask for nothing in return? The blanket around her shoulders was thick and warm. She pulled it tighter, afraid that if she let go, it would be taken back. Her people had taught her to survive by giving away everything: her pride, her dignity, even her body. But this man, this human, had turned away when she offered. The memory of that moment burned in her mind, confusing and strange. She whispered again, her voice soft and broken. "You really want nothing from me?" The man shook his head, his eyes fixed on the fire. "I want nothing, only that you stay safe tonight." The words made her chest heavy. Her people would laugh at such foolishness. But there was no laughter here, only silence and firelight. The night stretched long. She sat, curled under the blanket, listening to the storm. Every crack of thunder made her flinch, but each time, the calmness of the man kept her steady. He spoke little, yet his presence was strong. She could not help but study him. His face was marked with tired lines, scars across his hands. He looked like someone who had seen war, loss, and pain. Slowly, her eyes closed and opened again. Exhaustion fought against fear. She had not truly rested for days, maybe weeks. Every night outside had been a battle to stay alive. But here, for the first time, her eyelids grew heavy. The fire crackled. The chair creaked as the man leaned back, and she finally let sleep take her. When morning came, the storm was gone. The world outside was wet, shining under a gray sky. She woke to the smell of bread warming by the fire. Her heart jumped in panic. Had she slept too long? Had something been taken while she dreamed? She looked down. Her body was untouched. The blanket still around her, the bowl empty on the table. The man turned and gave her a simple nod. "You should eat more. You look weak." Her throat tightened. Why did he keep giving without asking? It felt like walking into a trap. But no chains had closed yet. She took the bread carefully, as if it might vanish. The taste was plain, but it filled her stomach in a way that felt unreal. Every bite made her feel guilty, as if she was stealing, yet he only watched quietly, not accusing, not demanding. She wanted to ask his name, but fear held her tongue. Instead, she asked another question. "Why live here, alone, away from your kind?" For a moment, his face darkened. The firelight showed shadows in his eyes. "Because I lost them," he said simply. No details, no long story, only those 4 words. But they carried the weight of broken years. She lowered her gaze. Loss, rejection, pain, those were things she understood. In his silence she felt a reflection of her own past. Maybe that was why he helped her. 2 broken lives crossing on a stormy night. She almost spoke, almost told him of her exile, but shame closed her mouth. Her story was ugly, and she feared he would throw her out if he knew. As the day passed, she stayed in the house. She wanted to leave, but her body was too weak, and the storm had left the streets full of mud and danger. The man never once asked her to go. Instead, he split wood, repaired a crack in the wall, and cooked again. Every act of his hands was calm, steady, kind. It was a rhythm she had never known. At times she caught him watching her, not with hunger, but with something she could not name. Perhaps pity, perhaps understanding. It made her chest ache. Kindness was dangerous. Kindness made you hope, and hope was always crushed. Yet she could not deny the warmth that was slowly seeping into her heart. As evening returned, the fire was lit once more. The alien woman sat wrapped in the blanket, her mind restless. She had entered this house ready to sell herself for shelter. But instead she had found a man who refused her offer. Now she did not know what she was to him, a guest, a burden, or perhaps something more. The suspense of not knowing was sharper than any blade. And yet, deep inside, she feared the answer less and less, because every hour she spent near him, the thought grew louder in her heart, that maybe, just maybe, she had finally found a place where kindness was real. The night fell once again. The alien woman sat close to the fire, her body still weak but warmer than before. The human sat across from her, sharpening a small blade, the sound slow and steady. Neither of them spoke much, but silence itself carried. Wait, she kept glancing at him, trying to read his face, trying to understand why he had chosen to help her. Her mind, however, would not rest. Every quiet moment opened doors to old memories. She remembered the day her people had cast her out, their cold voices telling her she was no longer welcome. She had begged for a chance, any chance, but they turned away. Her own clan had used her and then left her with nothing. The shame of it still burned like a scar across her soul. The firelight flickered on her face. She lowered her eyes, clutching the blanket as if it could hide the truth of who she was. What would he say if he knew? Would he throw her out too? Would he look at her with disgust, the same way her people once did? Her heart pounded at the thought. The human noticed her silence. He placed the blade down and leaned back in his chair. "You do not sleep well," he said softly. She froze, unsure how to answer. Finally she whispered, "Dreams, they remind me of things I wish to forget." He gave a small nod, as if he understood. But then his eyes grew distant, and she saw his own wounds rise to the surface. He spoke slowly, his voice low and heavy. "I too carry memories, ones that never leave." She looked up at him, surprised. He rarely shared words, yet now his face carried shadows deeper than before. "I once had a family," he continued, "but the war took them." The room grew colder, though the fire burned strong. She could see the pain in his eyes, the way his jaw tightened as he held back more. Her breath caught, so he too knew what it was to lose, to have the world strip away what mattered most. Her chest ached with a strange mix of sorrow and connection. Two different beings from different worlds, yet bound by the same cruel threat of loss. She wanted to ask more, but fear held her. Her story was not one of honor or sacrifice. It was one of shame, of being cast aside like broken glass. Would he still look at her the same if he knew? The fire crackled, breaking the silence. Her hands trembled as she finally spoke. "My people. They rejected me," she whispered. The words tasted bitter in her mouth. "They said I was unworthy. They used me, and when I had nothing left, they sent me into the storm." She stared into the fire, unable to meet his eyes. She expected silence, or worse, judgment. But what she heard instead was his quiet voice. "You did not deserve that." Her head snapped up, eyes wide with shock. No one had ever said those words to her before. Not once. His eyes did not hold disgust, only anger, not at her, but at the cruelty done to her. It was as if he carried her pain as his own. Her throat tightened, and for the first time in years, tears slid down her cheeks. She quickly wiped them away. "Ashamed. I am weak," she muttered. The human shook his head slowly. "No, you are still here. That is strength." The simplicity of his words shook her. Strength. She had never seen herself that way. Her people had told her she was nothing. But here sat a man who saw something else. The night grew late, but neither of them moved from the fire. The bond between them deepened in the silence. It was not the bond of desire or need. It was the bond of two souls scarred by loss, both carrying wounds too heavy to heal alone. And in that small house, they found a strange comfort in sharing the weight. For the first time she allowed herself to look at him without fear. His face was rough, his hands worn, but there was a strength in him that was not cruel, a strength that did not demand or break, but one that protected. She felt something stir inside her chest, not yet trust, but the beginning of it. And it scared her, because trust had always been a path to betrayal. Still, as the fire burned low and the night grew quiet, she found herself whispering one more question. "Why do you not hate me? Why do you not see me as worthless?" The man's answer was simple, yet carried the weight of truth. Because no one is worthless, not while they still breathe. Her heart shook at his words. It was a truth she had never known. And though fear still lived inside her, for the first time, hope was no longer a stranger. She pulled the blanket closer and closed her eyes, and for one fragile moment, she felt safe enough to dream of tomorrow. The days passed slowly. The alien woman grew stronger inside the human small house. Her body healed with food, warmth, and rest. But inside her heart, a storm still lived. She knew her people would not ignore her absence forever. They always watched, always judged, always punished. One morning, as the sun broke through gray clouds, a sound came from outside, voices harsh and cold. Speaking her language, her blood turned to ice. She moved to the window and saw them, her clan, a group of tall figures with sharp eyes and sharper words. They stood at the edge of the path, waiting. The human noticed her fear. He set down his tools and asked, "Who are they?" Her throat closed, but she forced the words out. "My clan. They must have found me." The man's face grew tense. Not from fear, but from readiness. He stepped toward the door, but she grabbed his arm. "No, you don't understand. They will not forgive me. They will not forgive you." The knock came. Heavy and demanding, the human opened the door slowly, his eyes steady. The figures outside glared at him, then at the woman standing behind him. One of them spoke, his voice sharp as steel. "She has taken shelter under your roof." "Human, do you know what this means?" The man's jaw tightened. "It means I gave her safety." The alien leader laughed, a cruel sound. "In our law, shelter is not free. If she rests beneath your roof, then she belongs to you." The woman gasped, her knees weak. She had heard those words before, whispered as threats, spoken as chains. Now they came alive before her again. Her clan's sacred law twisted survival into slavery. If she stayed, she would be bound. If she resisted, she would be punished. The human's eyes narrowed. "She does not belong to me," he said firmly. "She is free to choose where she stays." The aliens sneered, their laughter cold. "You speak like a fool, human. You cannot deny our law." The woman stepped forward, her hands trembling. Her voice broke. "Please, do not argue with them. They will destroy you." But the man did not move back. He stood tall, his body a shield before her. "I will not let anyone chain her," he said, his voice carrying steel. The alien's eyes burned with anger. One stepped closer, his hand gripping a blade at his side. "Then you defy us. You stand against our sacred ways." The woman's heart raced. Her people had crushed her before, but never had anyone stood between her and their cruelty. She wanted to pull him back, to tell him not to risk his life, yet something inside her broke open. For the first time someone called her free. The word itself felt like sunlight after endless storms. The leader pointed at her with cold eyes. You know the law. Speak it. Confess that you are his, or suffer the punishment." Her throat closed, her breath shallow. Every part of her remembered the past, the chains, the shame. She could not speak. The words would kill her, but silence too carried a price. The human stepped forward before she could answer. His voice thundered. "She is not yours to command, and she is not mine to own. She belongs to herself." The aliens hissed in rage. They had never been defied like this, not by one of their own, and certainly not by a human. The air grew tense, the ground between them like a battlefield. The woman clutched the blanket tighter, fear and hope burning together inside her chest. The leader's voice grew low and dangerous. "Then you have declared war against us, human. Our law is our honor, and you insult both." The man did not step back, his scarred hands curled into fists, his eyes sharp as fire. "If honor means chains, then your honor is worth nothing." The woman's heart pounded. She could not believe what she was hearing. This man, who owed her nothing, stood against her entire clan without hesitation. Her people had always called her worthless, yet here was someone ready to fight for her worth. Tears stung her eyes, but she held them back. The aliens turned away, their leader's voice cold. As stone, then prepare human, for we will return, and when we do, neither of you will escape the weight of the law. They vanished into the distance, their shadows long and dark. The door closed behind them. Silence filled the house. The woman sank to the floor, her body shaking. They will not forgive. They will come back, she whispered. The man knelt before her, his voice steady. Then let them come, I will not let them take you. Her chest ached, torn between terror and something she could not name. She looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, she saw not only kindness but strength strong enough to stand against her whole world. Outside, the sky darkened once more. A storm was building again, but this time it was not rain. It was the storm of her clan's wrath. And inside the small house, two broken souls prepared to face it together. The night felt heavy. The woman could not rest. Every sound outside made her body shake. She knew her clan would return. She knew their anger, their cruelty, their power. No one ever defied them without paying the price. She sat by the fire, her eyes wide and restless. The human sharpened his blade again, his hands steady, his face calm. Finally she whispered, her voice breaking, "You should let me go. If they find me here again, they will hurt you, maybe kill you." The man shook his head slowly, his eyes locked on the flames. "I will not give you back to chains." His words cut through the silence like steel, but to her ears they sounded like madness. No one had ever spoken against her clan and lived. Morning came, and with it, the sound of footsteps. She froze. Her breath caught in her throat. Outside the house, shadows gathered. Her clan had returned, more of them this time. The leader stood at the front, his voice like thunder. "Human, you have broken our law. Today you will answer for it." The human opened the door. Standing tall against them, the woman stayed behind him, fear twisting inside her chest. The leader raised his hand, pointing at her. "She belongs to you now, by sacred law, but you deny it, you spit on our honor." The man's voice was firm, each word sharp. "I spit on no one, but I will not accept your chains. She is free." The aliens roared with laughter, their cruel eyes shining with mockery. "You speak as if your words can change the law of 1,000 years. The human did not flinch. "Then your law is wrong, and I will not follow it." The air grew tense, the space between them heavy with danger. The woman's heart beat fast. Her mind screamed for him to stop, to bow, to survive, but he did not move. He stood like a wall of stone. Her clan drew closer, their weapons glinting in the light. One of them shouted, "You think you can fight all of us, human? You think your courage will save you?" The man's eyes burned with fire. "I will fight if I must, not because I want to, but because no one has the right to own her." His words shocked even the woman. She had never been defended like this. Her people had always seen her as a tool, a burden, a shame. But here was a man standing before blades, declaring her free. Her clan grew angry, their voices sharp and cruel. "She offered herself once. She knows her worth. She knows she is nothing." The words stabbed into her chest, reminding her of her past. Her hands shook, tears burned her eyes. But then she heard the man's voice rise louder. "You are wrong. She is not nothing. She is more than your chains, more than your law." The clan leader hissed, his anger clear. "You are a fool, human. No one has ever stood against us and lived. You will not be the first." The man's grip tightened on his blade. "That I will be the first," he said calmly. The silence that followed was like the edge of a knife. Every alien eye turned to him, measuring his strength, his will. The woman stepped forward, her heart torn in two. Part of her wanted to beg him to stop, to surrender. But another part, a stronger part, burned with something new. "Hope," she whispered, almost to herself. "He fights not for himself, but for me." The leader laughed again, a sound like broken glass. "Then let him fall for you, and let you watch." The woman's body shook, but she found her voice. "No," she said. Though her voice trembled, the aliens turned toward her, surprised. "No," she repeated, louder this time. Her heart raced, her fear screamed. But her words carried strength she did not know she had. "He does not own me, and neither do you." Her clan's eyes widened, their shock clear. Never before had she spoken against them. Never before had she refused. The leader's face twisted with rage. "Then you betray your blood, your clan, your honor." The woman stood taller, tears on her face, but fire in her voice. "I choose freedom. I choose life, even if it kills me." The human's eyes flickered with pride. He stepped closer to her, standing beside her now, not in front. Together they faced the clan, two broken souls against many. The air shook with tension. The clan prepared their weapons, but the man and the woman did not move. They stood as one, ready to fight, ready to fall, but never to bow. The stand had been made, the line had been drawn, and though fear lived in their hearts, so did something stronger. The woman no longer felt like a shadow in the storm. For the first time, she felt like a person worth defending, worth standing beside. The fight for freedom had begun. Asterisk. The path outside the house had become a battlefield of silence. The clan stood with weapons drawn, their sharp eyes burning with rage. The human stood firm, his blade ready, his body a shield. Beside him the alien woman trembled, but she did not step back. Her choice pressed heavy on her chest. To bow to the law meant chains. To stand against it meant death. The leader's voice cut the air. "You are nothing without us. You are nothing without our law. Speak now, woman. Confess you belong to him, or confess you belong to us." The woman's breath came sharp and shallow. Every word from her clan dragged her back into the past. The nights of shame, the cruel laughter, the endless rejection. She remembered the way they had stripped her of pride, of dignity, of hope. Her people had left her to rot, and yet here they stood, demanding she return to chains. The human's voice broke the silence. "She belongs to no one. Not me, not you, not anyone. She chooses her own path." The clan sneered, mocking him with cruel smiles. "You think her choice matters, human? You think one weak voice can stand against the weight of sacred law?" But the woman's eyes lifted, wet with tears yet filled with something stronger. She whispered to herself first, then louder, "My voice matters, my choice matters." Her clan shouted, angry, their voices rising like thunder, but she stood straighter, fire in her heart. "I choose freedom," she cried, her words carrying across the clearing. "I will not be your property, and I will not be his prize. I am my own." The sound of her defiance stunned even the human. For the first time she spoke not as a victim, but as someone rising from the ashes. The leader's eyes burned with fury. "You shame us all. You shame your blood. And now you shame yourself before this human." He raised his weapon, ready to strike, but the man stepped forward, his blade flashing, his voice steady. "If you touch her, you will fight me." The tension snapped like a string pulled too tight. The clan rushed forward, but the human met them without fear. The clash was quick and fierce, steel against steel, shouts echoing through the air. The woman watched with terror and awe. The human fought not with the strength of numbers, but with the strength of will. Every strike he made was a promise. Every block he held was a shield for her. She realized then that his fight was not for honor, not for pride. It was for her freedom, for her life. But the clan was many, and he was only one. His blade moved fast, but his arms grew heavy. Blood marked his skin. His breath grew short. The woman's heart pounded with every strike. She could not just stand there. If she stayed silent, he would fall. If he fell, so would she. Her choice pressed harder now. She could run, leave him, and maybe live, or she could stand with him, risk death, but claim her freedom for real. Her legs shook, her body weak, but her soul burned. She grabbed a broken piece of wood from the fire and stepped forward. Fear screamed inside her, but hope screamed louder. One of her clan rushed toward the man's side. The woman struck, the burning wood slamming into the attacker's back. The alien cried out, stumbling. The human turned. Shock in his eyes, she stood there, trembling, holding the weapon tight. "I will not hide anymore," she shouted. "If he stands for me, I stand for him." The battle shifted. Together they fought, human and alien woman side by side. Her strikes were clumsy, but her courage was sharp, and courage was enough to keep her moving. The clan grew frustrated, anger twisting into fear. They had expected her to bow, not to rise. They had expected her silence, not her voice. The leader raised his weapon high. "You will both die for this," he roared. But before his blade could fall, the woman stood before him. Her eyes fierce, her voice strong. "No, I will live, I will be free." The man moved to her side, both of them facing the leader together, and for the first time, the clan hesitated. Because they saw not one broken woman and one foolish human. They saw two souls united, stronger than chains. The leader snarled, lowering his weapon slowly. "This is not over," he hissed. "You have chosen war, and war will come for you." With those words he turned, the clan retreating into the shadows of the forest. The woman collapsed to her knees, her chest heaving. The man dropped his blade, blood dripping from his arms, but his hand reached for hers. Steady, strong. "You chose," he whispered, his voice rough but proud. "You chose freedom." Tears filled her eyes, but they were not tears of shame. They were tears of something new. Something she had never allowed herself to feel, hope. She squeezed his hand, her voice breaking but firm. "I chose you, I chose." US, not as chains but as equals. The storm inside her had broken. She was no longer the outcast begging for survival. She was no longer the woman who offered herself for safety. She was something more, and with him beside her, she would never bow again. The night after the battle was silent. The forest outside was dark. The wind carried only whispers. Inside the small house, the fire burned low, casting soft light over two figures. The human sat against the wall, his arm wrapped with cloth to stop the bleeding. The woman sat beside him, holding the bandage in place, her eyes full of worry. "You should rest," she whispered. He gave a faint smile, his voice tired. "I will rest when you are safe." Her chest ached at those words, because no one had ever spoken them to her before. Safety had always been something she had to beg for, something she had to pay for. But here it was given freely, without demand, without chains. Her clan had left, but she knew they would return. Their threats were heavy, their law was cruel, yet even with danger waiting, she felt something strange in her heart. For the first time in her life, she was not alone. For the first time, someone stood with her, not to use her, but to protect her. She stayed awake long into the night, watching him breathe. She thought of how far she had come. From a broken woman in the storm to this moment. He had given her more than shelter, more than warmth. He had given her dignity. The belief that she mattered. Her people had called her nothing. But to him she was not nothing. To him she was someone worth fighting for. Days passed. The wounds healed slowly. The man worked even through pain, cutting wood, fixing the roof, keeping the fire alive. The woman helped where she could. Her hands clumsy at first, but steady with time. Together they built a rhythm, one cooking, one repairing, one fetching water. The house that had once been only his became theirs. Not by law, not by force, but by choice. At night they spoke by the fire. She told him more of her past, of the cruelty of her people, of the shame they forced on her. He listened without judgment, his eyes soft, his silence full of understanding. He told her of his family, of the war that had taken them, of the loneliness that followed. She listened, her heart aching for him. Two wounded souls sharing their scars, finding comfort in each other's truths. The woman began to smile again, small at first, uncertain. But each time he saw it, his own smile grew. He had lived years in silence, years in grief. Yet now laughter returned, soft but real. The house that once held only firelight now held voices, warmth, and something deeper, her clan's shadow still lingered. Every day they both knew the threat could return, but the fear no longer chained her, because even if they came, she was no longer the woman who bowed. She was no longer the one who offered herself for survival. She was someone who had chosen her path, chosen her freedom, chosen her home. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky with fire, she stood outside the small house. Looking at the horizon, her heart felt heavy but full. The human stepped beside her, his presence steady, his voice gentle. "Do you regret it?" he asked. "Defying them, choosing this?" She turned her face toward him, her eyes glowing with tears. "I regret only the years I wasted in chains," she said, "but not this, never this." Her hand reached for his, and he took it without hesitation. It was not the touch of ownership, not the grip of control. It was the joining of equals, steady and strong. In that moment she realized the truth. She had come to him offering herself for nothing but a roof. She had expected to be used, discarded, forgotten. But instead, he had given her something far greater. He had given her warmth, love, and a home. Not because she begged for it, not because she traded for it, but because he saw her worth when no one else did. The house in the forest became more than shelter. It became a symbol of defiance, of hope, of love. And though storms would come, though the clan might return, the two of them would face it together, not as master and possession, not as savior and victim, but as two hearts bound by choice. The woman looked at the firelight glowing through the window. She smiled, truly smiled, her voice soft but filled with strength. "I offered myself for shelter, but you gave me a home. I offered my body, but you gave me back my soul. I thought I was nothing, but with you, I am everything." The human said nothing, only held her hand tighter. The silence between them was not empty. It was full, full of promises unspoken, full of love unbroken. The night wrapped around them, the stars watching above, and for the first time in her life, the woman was not afraid of tomorrow. She had found her freedom. She had found her worth. And in the arms of a human who defied the chains of her people, she had found her home.